Hi everyone, it's me, Lubna. Today is Sunday, September 8th, 2024. This video is dedicated to my beloved, and the topic of this video is going to be about the things that we have to give up throughout our lives. So as I mentioned a couple of videos prior, I'm currently reading this book, The Road Less Traveled, A New Psychology of Love, Traditional Values and Spiritual Growth by the psychiatrist Peck, MD. And while I was reading this book this morning, I came across a section in which he was talking about giving things up throughout our lives, and about how depression is often a result of the inability to successfully give these things up and the tendency to cling to these things. So he has a list of various things that we are supposed to give up throughout our lives in order to live successfully and to pass through each stage in our lives. And I'm going to go ahead and read some of them aloud. So here it goes. First, the state of infancy, in which no external demands need be responded to. Next, the fantasy of omnipotence. Next, the dependency of childhood. Next, distorted images of one's parents. Next, the omnipotentiality of adolescence. And then the freedom of uncommitment, the agility of youth, the fantasy of immortality, authority over one's children, various forms of temporal power, the independence of physical health, and ultimately the self and life itself. So those are just some of the things that it might be kind of intuitive that we have to give up throughout our lives. And I'm going to try to go through them one by one and talk a little bit more about each one of them. So first he says the state of infancy, in which no external demands need be responded to. So we were all once infants and children, and at one point we were all completely dependent on our parents for everything. And there is a part of us that comes out once in a while throughout our lives that yearns for that feeling of being able to wholly, completely depend on another person or other persons for our well-being and not have to worry about ourselves and taking care of ourselves. But obviously it's not possible to continue living like that for our entire lives, which is why he says that we have to give up the state of infancy. And then next, the fantasy of omnipotence. A lot of us, especially when we are younger, maybe as teenagers, we have this fantasy that we are all-powerful, that we are invincible, and we have authority over our own lives, and we don't have to listen to other authority figures. And as we get older, we learn that this is not the case, and that our livelihood depends a lot upon external factors and entities beyond our control, like the government and various institutions and the managers or bosses at the jobs that we work at. So a lot of things depend on somebody who is more powerful than ourselves. And then next is the dependency of childhood, which is similar to what I talked about, how when we're infants, we're completely dependent on our parents, and similarly in childhood, we are dependent on our parents as well, or somebody, whoever is our guardian, to provide for us. And that's something that we have to let go again as we get older, and we have to learn to provide for ourselves and our own needs. And then next, distorted images of one's parents. How many of you grew up thinking that your parents were perfect, and then as you got a little bit older, you realized that they're not perfect and that they're human beings just like you are? And I think that that is a harsh realization that we all come to. And as we get older, we realize that our parents are not perfect and that they have their own issues and their own problems, which may or may not have affected us, but we end up having to learn from observing them and realizing that they're not perfect. They're not the perfect people that we thought they were when they were younger. I definitely have experienced that for myself upon observing my own parents as I've been growing up. And then there's the omnipotentiality of adolescence. Again, when we are adolescents or teenagers, we feel like we have so much potential to do anything and be anything, and we've not yet become specialized into one particular field of life or one particular profession. And like when you're a teenager, you still have the opportunity to one day maybe become a doctor or a lawyer or an architect or an artist, and everything is open to you. But as you get a little bit older, you have to become more and more specialized and decide what you would like to devote yourself to. And you have to sacrifice all of the other things and all of the other options by necessity. And it can be difficult, but it's just a part of life. And then there's the freedom of uncommitment. Like again, when we are younger and maybe we're not in a committed relationship yet, we feel like we are free. We don't have to listen to anybody. We don't have to let anybody know when we're coming home, and nobody's expecting us to be there. Like we don't have a commitment to a specific significant other yet, and we are free to date whoever we want and spend time with whoever we want. But as we get older, we need to give that up, and especially as we enter an adult relationship, we need to be able to commit ourselves to somebody and sacrifice some of our freedom for that. And then there's the agility of youth. Again, when we are young, we have so much energy and vitality, and just by nature of our bodies being fragile and delicate things, we have to give up some of our agility and suffer a deterioration of our physical health just as we get older. It's just a part of aging, you know. And then the fantasy of immortality. We think that we are gonna live forever, especially when we are young. We don't think about the fact that one day we will die, and we feel like life is going to be forever. But it's important to keep in mind that we are finite and that one day we will have to die. And just that knowledge alone helps us live a much more meaningful life, just knowing that you could die tomorrow. And how would you live today if you knew that tomorrow you would die? Just live. It's important to live with that knowledge on a daily basis. Authority over one's children, and that's something that I've observed is very difficult for a lot of parents to give up, especially when their children get older. I know that my mom she still has authority over me, and it's partly my decision to let her have authority over me in some aspects of her life, of my life. But yeah, ultimately when a person is a parent to a child, as that child gets older, the parent has to let go of some of that authority and let that child make his or her own decisions. And various forms of temporal power, like certain positions that we hold are not going to be positions that we hold forever, such as being a parent. Again, when you're a parent, you're always going to be a parent, but you have to let go again of the authority and the authoritative role that you have over your children's lives. And then the independence of physical health. We all age and we all deteriorate physically, and that leads to some loss of independence. And unfortunately, that is just a part of life and just a part of getting older, and we have to give up our physical health ultimately for the last and very last step, which is giving up the self and life itself. That is inevitable, that we're all gonna die someday. So that is all that I wanted to share today. Just some food for thought about all of the things that we have to give up throughout our lives as human beings. And we need to be courageous in giving up each of these things and moving forward and moving on to the next stage in life, because Otherwise, we come to a standstill, and it becomes very hard to go on living when you're tied and clinging on to a previous stage of your life. And like, for example, keeping yourself dependent on your parents. It's very hard to live as an adult when you allow yourself to cling to that stage. But it's a challenge that we all have to go through at some point, and all of these are challenges that we have to go through at some point. So I want to say thank you for taking the time to listen to my video today, and with that, I'd like to wish you a wonderful day, afternoon, evening, or whatever it is, wherever you are in the world.